Hi, Cassandra Matej. How are you? And Faye Hall Jackson.
Hello.
It,
Great.
Glad to have you with us today, Cassandra. And Faye is my co-host of Cinderella CEO On Air, or C2CEO. And I am Carrie Broussard, your host. And Cassandra, you and I go way back, but we have never seen each other on Zoom. So this
Nope.
is a first and foremost. And as the president and CEO of Visit San Antonio, we all love, and we're so proud of what you have done to help make San Antonio such a prominent destination for so many across the globe, but especially here in Texas. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And some of the people who you've met already, because we had a little kind of pre-meeting of our C2CEO coaching group, and a lot of people have told you before that they love the kayaking idea, but we're going to talk about some of the things that you've done as a business leader as along the Riverwalk. The kayaking, by the way, is along the Riverwalk, but things that you've done as a leader of the San Antonio, which used to be the Convention and Visitors Bureau. You have led I think it's a $15 billion entity now. Is that right? Is that the
Well, yeah,
Wow.
the economic impact of the hospitality and travel industry in San Antonio has reached 15 billion. And in fact, so important to our community. We're the third largest industry in San Antonio. So definitely impactful for the community of San Antonio.
It's phenomenal. So what we
Mm-hmm.
do at C2CEO, which is based on the book From Cinderella to CEO, which is why we shortened it, C2CEO, we interview accomplished leaders who inspire our podcast listeners to actually be the best they can be and to persevere with confidence to achieve their goals. And so we just, I guess, encourage you, Cassandra, to share your stories, share your main story, but all your stories that you might have leading up to where you are today. If you've ever overcome any obstacles, I think maybe you have a few, like we all do, but
Sure.
I can't imagine, as we talked about this earlier, when you took the position as head of the San Antonio Convention and Visitors Bureau in the top 50 markets, you at the time there was only one woman who was head of a Convention and Visitors Bureau destination marketing, and that was you. So
Yeah, that was, I remember because one of our partners brought that to my attention. There, of course, were women before me in other cities, but at that snapshot in time, learn that you're the only female in, the top 50 cities in the US by population, that it really makes you think
it
in a
does.
broader sense,
It
Yes.
does make you think,
Yes.
doesn't it, Faye?
Yeah.
And what I can
Yes.
tell you have a question on the tip of your tongue. What are you going to ask her?
So no, I'm just thinking, yeah, it makes you think.
It
So
does.
you are one. It's like you're the soloist in the choir, but there were other singers to come before you. What
Yes.
is it that you think brought you and kept you? Because the other women in the space, they were trailblazers, but there
Mhm.
was something that happened that caused them to take a detour. But you have been sitting firm in this place for a little while. And so
Yeah.
what is it? What do you how I guess this is my question. How did it feel knowing that you were the only one? And once you let that soak in that you were the only one, what then did you feel was your responsibility so that you would not be the only one?
Great
Uh,
question.
that is a very good question. And I think about the person that was 10 years ago. So I've been here 10 years
Mhm.
and it's been a wonderful journey. And I think looking back, when I was interviewing for the position and then the city selected me for the position, I didn't look at it as being male or female. I looked at it from the experience that I had in my background that propelled me to be able to be in the position of executive director, now president and CEO. So I really, at that moment in time, I did not look at it from a gender standpoint, but very quickly, the the industry and the national industry let me know. So it was very, because there was a lot of conversations that were happening right when I arrived. There were some of our partners that did the research to figure that out. And so all of a sudden I started receiving emails, letters, and notes from women across the country, just, excited for me. And so while I didn't know that I had this very important role as a female, I I I felt a real, I don't want to say burden of responsibility, but it was a big responsibility. And so I think my actions were, I always had that in the back of my head that I needed to be a true example. But you're exactly right. There were trailblazers before me, and in fact, made it easier for my path to become a CEO. I think about Deborah Sexton, who, was over Chicago for so many years. So there are examples. And even today, we have grown in that area, because I think about my friends. She was with Philadelphia, but Julie Coker, who now leads San Diego. I think of Martha Sheridan, who now runs Boston. So I will tell you, we have made strides as females, being in that number one seat, but we still have a road and a journey to go.
I think that's a great point, is we still have a ways to go. And now with the hospitality industry, the travel and tourism industry, taking the dip that we're taking, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the global pandemic, there is hopefully an opportunity when we come back. And I love that you, again, we talked briefly about this, that you think that there's going to be opportunities for women and men with the talent that's out there, is almost pent up, like they're going to be ready to go. Is that true? Or tell us a little bit more about it.
When I think about it right now, unfortunately, there are a lot of very talented people that had to be furloughed. And I do think, and part of my mantra about the workforce of the travel and hospitality industry is we all have a variety and a diversity of skill sets.
Yes.
That whether it's in our industry or other industry, there are some talented people out there for companies, whether they're in our industry or outside of our industry, for people to go to. And so I do think that there's a pool of talent like no other time. And so those people need to make sure that they're known and
Yes.
that their name is out there. Because I think right now, and we talked about this, is that it's imperative, whether it's the employer or the employee, that we all remain very flexible. I know at Visit San Antonio, we want to be where customers are. So, we have an office in Chicago, we have an office in DC, and we have an office in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But if there is somebody that's highly talented, that's going to bring something to the table, at this point in time, it doesn't matter where they're located.
Yes, that is the point, I think. And and women leaders in particular, we had Christine Duffy on last week. I know you know her. She knows you, is that you're okay with the flexible time. Like, women in particular may get that more than men. I don't know that for sure, but historically that's been the case because of taking care of children and parents and in the household, in addition to having a job. It's that having that flexibility with technology is a plus. To have a leader look at that, a leader such as you, that, hey, we're looking at hiring people who may be able to work from another city, in particular.
I think you have to look at that. And I also, so, part of my personal story is that I'm a wife, and I'm also a mother of two that are elementary and junior high age. So, our life is certainly full. And so I'm walking in those shoes. So I know what type of flexibility that women and fathers, mothers and fathers need to be able to make sure that their children are successful. But I find that if you give flexibility in the work environment, you're actually going to see so much more production from those team members and become a successful organization. And what are destination organizations but our people? I don't own a hotel. I don't own the convention center. We are the marketing and sales arm for all of those type of assets in our community, but it's our people. And so we've got to make sure that we have a very healthy and progressive work environment that's part of our organization.
Wow, that's so true.
But
Faye,
in
you
this
asked,
environment, oh, go
no, go
ahead,
ahead.
Mary. I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
So,
please.
so in this environment, though, Cassandra, we think there, at the top of the conversation, we talk about the numbers of people that are furloughed, that are really being creative, trying to make ends meet, to
Yeah.
keep the lights on and to keep their families satisfied and congealed together. But then we say, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. How do we then, particularly in this travel and tourism industry, that has to be nimble, has to be flexible, how do we keep those individuals encouraged so that they are ready to be onboarded when the time comes?
I think that is a very tough question, right? Because I'm sitting before you and I still have my job, right? I wasn't furloughed. Now, made a decision to reduce my salary because I felt like that was something that we needed to do and I needed to be an example. But I will tell you that that is tough. What I would say to those that are currently furloughed or laid off is do something now. There are so many free seminars, online seminars, and ways to make you better. I know whether it's college kids that just graduated that are out there looking for a job, they've asked me, what do I need to do? And I think a question that's going to be asked of any of these individuals is, how did you use your time during this time that you were either furloughed or that you're looking for a job? And to me, all the associations, whether it was PCMA, Destinations International, MPI, many of our industry associations have offered free training and some opportunities of getting certifications. So I think that that's very important to take that opportunity. What I will say, and it's hard, and it is hard to say to someone that is really struggling right now, but we are going to recover. It's going to be long term, and we're already in San Antonio starting to see more people going back to work. So I'm seeing a sign of recovery. We're starting to see people come to San Antonio to experience the destination. So that gives me some hope. In the last month and a half, we've hosted two smaller conventions, but in our convention center. That gives me hope. But I will tell you, our tourism economics, they have said it's a long road for recovery. So we're going to have the next 4 to 5 months is still going to be a struggle. So that's also why, as an industry, whether it's through U.S. Travel Association or even ASAE, that we're fighting so much on the Hill to get additional funding for those individuals.
Yes, which so glad you said that. The COVID relief now bill is, I guess, almost on the floor. And we've been encouraged by AHLA, American Hotel Lodging Association, to contact our representatives, our congressmen and women, senators and representatives to vote for that bill. Now is the time, because we're hoping to get it by the end of the year. I don't know. Do you think there's hope for that?
I think about, so a small snapshot of our industry in San Antonio, 1 in 7 San Antonians were employed in our industry, over
Wow.
140,000 people. So think about that. Like, that's
Wow.
just San Antonio. So multiply that and look at all the destinations across the US, all the people working for international, national associations. If we come together and we act and we let our representatives know how we feel and how it can help us, and you tell your story, I think they'll listen. If
Yeah.
you just choose that you're staying at home and this is just happening to you, and you're choosing not to have your voice heard, then it's not going to happen. We have the power of the people. And if we band together and make a simple call, do a simple email, I think we could make an impression for them to understand the impact to our entire industry.
I love it. And thank you. We just got a note from the chat room that said, okay, we're coming back to that question. But to add to what you said, I think anybody listening to this podcast, live or the recording, you can go to ahla.com and learn more about. They make it so easy for you to send an email or make a call to your representatives that we have no excuse not to do it. And it will, like you said, I'm so glad to hear you just sort of make sure that we know that actually it does work, that there's that somebody actually does hear if we do this extra step, which is not much, it takes a minute of our time, it will actually make a difference.
It will. And here's the thing, a lot of times it is their staffers who receive the message, but the more and more messaging that they hear, they understand that it gets to the top of the list and that it becomes a priority. So it really is a numbers game.
That's great. I want to encourage everybody who is listening to send us any questions to Cassandra. I'll take a minute. You can just go straight to the question, can come straight to me or to Faye Hall Jackson. I don't know if I officially introduced Faye Hall Jackson, who is my co-host. She's a professor at Tuskegee University in Alabama. She and I met at the Conrad Hilton School, where I was a visiting lecturer, and Faye was a professor at University of Houston, Conrad Hilton School, and then went back to Tuskegee. So she has, where you're from originally, right, Faye?
Tuskegee's home for me.
Tuskegee is home. And so I am so honored. I also taught at NYU in the tourism hotel school, but Faye, and I would have loved to have had you as a professor, Faye, because you asked such great questions. I'm sure I would have had a tough time in your course, but I'm going to mention that. And then I also want to do a quick little kind of advertisement. CinderellaCEO.com/discovery / you can contact me anytime to follow up on this discussion and any of our podcasts about just what you're going through. I love that Cassandra mentioned this earlier. We, especially in the hospitality industry, have transferable skills. And
Yes.
There's a question from Tammy Blanco, who just sent us this on the chat room. She was saying that additional certifications, accomplishments during COVID would give a currently furloughed employee a leg up to be called back over another. How would a furloughed employee make their current employer aware of what they've done? So how would a furloughed employee make their current employer aware of what they might have done, whether it's these certifications or accomplishments? If and when you contact me through CinderellaCEO.com/discovery / we'll talk about some of these things too that Cassandra and Faye and people like Tammy are bringing to the forefront. But would you like to answer that question, Cassandra?
Yeah, I think it's simple because, there's obviously rules and regulations regarding furloughed employees. But your natural communication to that organization is through your HR representative. And so I definitely think if you're not touching base with your current employer, that I would make sure that periodically that I would send them an update on things that you're doing. Because I will also tell you, one of the things that we felt that was part of our role, and it's not our typical role as a destination marketing organization, but on our website, we have resources of job openings because we wanted to get the industry back to employment. And so we would have job openings posted, links to where you could get free education or complimentary certifications. So we want to help, whether it's our team or people that are in the industry. And so we started making those resources available on our website.
Right. Wow.
And, you know, to that, I would also add, don't limit yourself to returning to the workforce at your previous employer.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself. You may have enjoyed the exploration there. You may have enjoyed the opportunity, but you still need to keep the lights on.
Unless, of course, you were working for Visit San Antonio, which, of course,
That's
you would
right,
never.
by the way, one of the top places to work in
That's
San
exactly it.
Antonio 2019. So we were very proud because, as I mentioned, I think staff and your team, they have to be first and foremost.
And, you know, wasn't 2019 going to be the best year for everybody? I mean, that's what's so whatever cruel.
One of my team members, and I'll give him a shout out, Mario, who's our vice president of sales. He often says, you know, we should apologize to 2019.
We should.
Because it wasn't such a bad year at all.
I like that, Mario. I am totally going to do that.
You know, that sense of humor really goes a long way in building that attitude and that perspective as well.
Yes.
And so even when we're out there and we might be struggling a little bit, we still need to maintain that smile, not a fake smile, because there is always something for us to give thanks for every day.
You know, I can hear my team saying, I know what she's about to say. I've had a personal mantra that I've also said to our team as well as our industry locally is it's about perpetual optimism.
Mhm.
You know, I look back since March and there was different moments in time, right? Like we thought when it started impacting us in March and we had to make some decisions. Our marketing went dark. We had to stop spending. Ultimately, we had to furlough 40% of our team members. And so we saw the timeline that we thought by June, we're going to be able to relaunch, bring back team members. And so there was just moment of times that you were working towards to, you know, give a sense of hope.
Normalcy. Yeah.
You know, yeah, absolutely. So.
But I love that. I love that. Tell us again what your mantra is. It's
perpetual optimism.
Perpetual optimism.
Because
like that.
That's what's going to keep you going right now. You're going to have some dark days, some down days, but perpetual optimism gives you a hope for a future. And I will tell you, I know this to be fact. The travel and hospitality industry is very resilient. We've shown it time and time again. And the fact that we're a top employer across the US only means that our industry is imperative to recover for the country, for the economic recovery of the country. So I think that's important. I mean, we're going to be part of why San Antonio and the local economy recovers is when the travel and tourism recovers.
Yes, definitely. I'm so glad you said that. And Faye, we got a question from the chat room. Do you want to read that question or do you want to go first?
So here we go. What advice do you wish someone had given to you when you were early on in your career?
Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure. What advice? Because I will tell you, luckily I was very blessed to be surrounded by people that either took me under their wing or provided me the advice. And so maybe let me tell you some helpful advice first.
Yeah.
And this is so trivial, so trivial. And it's a little bit different because we're working from home, right? But one thing that someone told me is dress for the position you want, not the position you have. And I know that sounds so trivial, but when you think about all of that, that means is have the mindset and develop the skills for the position that you want versus the position that you know have.
Yeah, great
And I
advice.
think that that's very key. But I do think, because my career path was truly haphazard, even how I came into the industry. But the one advice that I would give you is be intentional. Look at where your path has been, look at where you truly want to go, and be intentional about that and develop a plan. I don't know that many people are back, especially when I entered the industry, had a true plan. Because you got to remember, destination organizations, we're very small. Like compared to a major hotel company, I mean, look at Marriott. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of employees. But on average, a destination organization could have anywhere from 30 to 80 employees. So very
Yes,
small.
that's very small.
Mhm.
But at the same time, right now, it seems like you hope that they come back full throttle with the 30 to 80. But how I was curious about what you said early on is that how did you get into the industry then?
So I am a proud Longhorn, went to the University of Texas in
Woohoo!
Austin, so hook 'em horns. But we did not have a tourism program. And even back then, very few schools did, whether it was hotel management, travel and tourism, et cetera. And so I went the path. And in fact, I didn't know that that was the industry I wanted to fall in. So I took the communications path, which has been very helpful in the industry and my career path. But honestly, before I was graduating college, I wrote down my parents' friends' names. I wrote down people I interacted with, because through college, I worked at the state capitol. I worked for a lobbyist. So I didn't know if naturally I'd go the GR route. But I literally was floating on a tube in the Guadalupe River in Texas.
Nice.
And a friend of mine said, well, what are you going to do after graduation? I said, I really don't know. And he said, you know that one of our dearest friends, his mother is the VP of sales for the Dallas Convention and Visitors Bureau. You would be great in that industry. And I'm like, I've never even heard of it. And so I then asked for an informational interview, and which turned into my very first job at the Dallas Convention and Visitors Bureau right out of college.
I remember that, and I know that was a tough. Were tough jobs to get. That is a tough
Yes.
job to get. It will continue to be a tough job to get. But what you added to that, which I think is really great, the government experience, I think, is a plus in tourism. A lot of people don't realize that. I know all the hotel companies. I don't know if all of them, but many of them hired right away somebody in the lobbying field, because
Yep.
we know right now is a critical time to know what's going on Capitol Hill and elsewhere in the state government as well. But you mentioned two things. One, you wrote down the names of all your friends, parents, friends, acquaintances. A lot of times, I think maybe younger people and maybe just any of us, we're thinking we don't reach out to our friends. We're going to get online and submit a resume or something, which really it may be staring us right in the face of who we have the connections with to help us.
Well, I mean, I know it's probably said in most leadership books, it's said time and time again, but it is really understanding who is in your network. I think of, and I'm going to give them kudos, but like Texas A&M, their circle of alumni, they hire one another, they help one another, and you too. I mean, everybody has a network, but you have to identify who that is and ask them the right questions.
Yes.
Because to me, I was just doing informational interviews. And so that was, it really helped me identify what I wanted to do, or at least I thought I wanted to do. But I do think it's important that you look at your circle and your network. And if you don't think that it is diverse enough, then get out there, because there's plenty of opportunities, whether it's through your local chambers, whether it's through other associations, whether it's through industry associations, to build that network.
Mhm.
Great advice.
And to that, if we circle all the way back to Tammy's question about what can our furloughed employees do to return in a gainful way to the workforce, I think one of these strategies is what you just spoke to, Cassandra, and that's not just build your network, but work your network.
Mhm.
Reach
Great
out
point.
to them. If your
It goes back to do you have people that, if you were about to interview for a job, do you have people in your life, whether they're peers, mentors, that you could talk through how you're preparing for those interviews? I think that that's important. And one of my dearest friends, our career has grown. She now leads international association based in Chicago, but we both we saw our career paths, and so we were both resources and just sounding boards for one another. So I know the term mentor is tossed around a lot, but I also don't want us to forget about the peer-to-peer
Yes,
in our networks, and how important they are to your career growth.
absolutely. That's so important. And I think right now is a perfect time that, even though we've been on Zoom, we've developed these groups on Zoom and connections. And don't forget, cinderellaceo.com/discovery. Get on, call me and email me, because I definitely believe that, to what Cassandra has said, and the question that Faith followed up with, is it is really about this network and peer-to-peer movement that will go beyond 2020, and it will carry you for the rest of your career.
Well,
It's
I will say this, and I will. It may be a little long-winded, so feel free to
Go
cut me
for it.
off. But so I gave an example many years ago, right? Graduating college. I've been in the industry now 27 years, and I took a variety. I've mostly had, in those 27 years, I mostly had destination organizations that I've worked for, but I've also worked for hotels. And at one point in my life, I worked for a meeting planning company.
Yeah.
And really, it wasn't intentional. But then when you look back at my career path, it's very diverse. And I wish I was more intentional, but it just happened to work out that way, that I had this diverse experience of hotels, destinations, and even meeting planning. But I'll give an example of the importance of network. So when the executive search firm that was handling the search for my position in San Antonio called, actually the person who called me was someone that worked for the search firm I worked for at
Perfect.
one point in my career.
Wow.
But he did not call me about the San Antonio position. He had called me because he knew I was the senior VP of sales and services in Dallas. He was calling me for another CEO opportunity, a much smaller city, which was a great city. But I said, well, but I've heard that the San Antonio position it was available, and mentioned it to him. And he said, Cassandra, I just don't think you're ready for that. And I said, well, and because I had a former relationship with him, and he was part of my network, and I kept up with him all those years, I felt more comfortable. And I said, well, let me tell you what I've been doing for the last 12 years since I've worked for you.
Perfect.
And when I told him, this was on a Friday, and on a Monday, he called me back, and he said, you know what, I'm going to put your name in the mix.
Mhm.
And so I had to sell myself. And I said, that's all I'm asking, because if it's the right situation and I'm the right person for the job, it'll all work itself out. But it'll also be great experience for me to go through a process like that. And as a result, I've been here now 10 years. But the good and the bad of it was, He knew my work ethic. He knew my drive to succeed, and he had seen my work firsthand. So because of my network and him being somebody that I used to work for, and then we became friends, think about that being a pivotal moment of that search for this position that I'm sitting in now.
In the rest of your life, or at least since then.
And I will tell you, he called me. I won't ever forget it. He called me in my hotel that evening to let me know that they wanted me to progress to the final two. And he's like, I have to tell you, you just blew my socks off. I had no idea. He goes, I will tell you, you are not that young sales manager that worked for me. I mean, he goes, I always knew that you were a hard worker and you were successful, but it was just a full circle.
How do you think what do you think happened, or how do you think you changed from that moment to when you interviewed for that job? What was that? What do you think had changed?
It was truly the experience. All of a sudden, I was a senior vice president. I was dealing with operational, I was dealing with budgets, I was dealing with strategic planning, and he didn't realize that, right? Because he just had me in that bucket that he once knew me.
But
right?
he also, I would also say that probably you had those skills, but your confidence level had also changed, it seems. But maybe you were always this confident. Just curious, did that?
Oh, I think there's always a time. I think especially early on in your career, you want to listen and watch and be a sponge. And frankly, I hate to say it, you learn some really valuable things from not good examples. And I've learned that from different directors in my life. And so you've got to make an intentional decision of what type of leader, what type of manager you want to be. And that's from experience as well as learning from those around you, both good and bad.
That's great. So that was intentional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Faye,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think the other thing though that I heard here was that while this individual was a champion for you, and they were a mentor for you, they had a little bias also. And that bias put you in a bucket that was difficult to break out of.
That's right.
But they still very much cared about you and tried to nurture you. But you had to become CEO of self and become your own advocate, even though this individual gave you access. And so I think as we continue in our career tracks, we always value our mentors, but we don't, or we should not allow our mentors to be our substitutes for our own individual advocacy. Our mentors can advocate, but we individually must advocate also, and mainly rely on them for access.
So I think that can be a chapter in another book.
Yes, absolutely.
That was very well said.
I love it. And it's so true. You nailed it, Faye. It is absolutely, because somebody could have known you like it happened with Cassandra when she was younger and would keep that image of her at that point. And so she advocated for herself. Awesome. Do you want to ask another question from the chat room, or do you want to ask your own?
And no, let me go back to the chat room, because we're on this line of questioning now of mentoring and who do we invite into our inner circles. And so this question says, can you offer some best practices on actual ways to approach people to be a mentor or join their organization or participate in their group? And so on here, I want to spin it just a little bit and ask you to respond to the perspective of, do we ask individuals to mentor us, or do we wait for a mentor to adopt us?
Very, very good question, because my experience, when I look back, who I really feel are my mentors, they adopted me, or I gained perspective from, our relationship that we developed. And I think sometimes that's just a natural. And I go back to, and I don't want to ignore the importance of what I guess I would call peer-to-peer mentoring, because I do think that that's very important. If there's people that you respect in your friend circle, et cetera, don't ignore how impactful and important they are. I've also been part of more structured mentoring programs, and I will say this: and I was at the city of San Antonio. The then city manager Cheryl Scully, she created a women's mentor program because the goal was to mentor, so there are opportunities to grow these women into female executives for the city. So there was an end game. But what I also know is there's now a lot more structured mentoring programs out there. I believe in most cities, if you have a business journal like the San Antonio Business Journal, there's the Houston Business Journal, most cities have a business journal. They typically will have events around mentoring, and I participated in one. And yes, it's crazy because at one day, you may talk to 15 people, but there are also people that made an impression. So I would tell you that if you are seeking and want to request someone to be a mentor, you need to be able to tell them why.
Exactly.
Because I think it's not because of somebody's title. It's not because, I want anybody that's a CEO or anyone, et cetera, to be my mentor. When if it is more of a approach of requesting, I think you need to be authentic of why you would like them to. But we can't ignore the development of a relationship naturally.
So important.
Yeah.
You can't force that. So, okay, I want to go back to kayaking for a minute. We started the program, and this, I think, was launched in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, that you can kayak, you could rent a kayak or bring your own kayak and kayak up and down the river that goes through San Antonio. What is the name of that river?
It is the San Antonio River.
Oh,
it is very simple. It's the San Antonio River. It is actually, the San Antonio River goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So first of all, it is a big river. But what everybody is what we're well known for is what's known of the heart of the Riverwalk, right? And it's the heart of our city: hotels, the convention center, nightlife, they're all shopping. They're all along the river, right? In fact, there was someone that once said that it's the largest hotel lobby in the world because it connects so many things. Well, so during this time, some of the barges and they had to stop some of their service. So in order to get people, and during this time, so it may not be forever in the middle of the river, the center of the Riverwalk, but you can bring your kayak and kayak down the heart of the river, and it's fabulous. But we are also working for a long-term solution with the San Antonio River Authority, and hope to be having an announcement, because I will tell you, the heart of what of the Riverwalk grew a few years back from 3 miles to 15 miles. And now you can go explore and go what we call the museum reach and get to the Pearl District, or you can go the other
Pearl
direction,
District,
and it's the Mission reach. And so when I say it is you can have a spiritual experience on the Riverwalk trails. You can make it what you want, and it's just so beautiful. But yeah, we're looking at developing even more experiences.
I think that's great.
In the river, yeah,
that's more natural. And then, can you kayak? I mean, I don't know if you said this already, but can I kayak from the Riverwalk all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, or is it going to stop at 15 minutes? Okay,
there's going to be challenges for you doing that.
Okay,
no, you can't do that.
But can you go? How far would I be able to kayak?
I would tell you could kayak at least Oh, probably 10 miles.
That's good. That's great. I think
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah,
interested.
yeah.
People are
Mhm,
interested in that.
mhm.
So the Pearl District, amazing. The Emma
Yeah.
Hotel there is one of my favorite
Oh,
hotels.
it is internationally recognized. It is the heartbeat of the Pearl District, and you're hearing me correctly when I
Yeah.
say Pearl. It was the Pearl Brewery
Yes.
many years ago, and it's a 22-acre mixed-use development anchored by Hotel Emma, and there are wonderful chef-owned restaurants. There's a jazz club. There's a sports club. There's just, it is
Spas.
a great area to explore. So it's probably in the last 10 years. In fact, when I moved here, there was one restaurant open, and now there's, I mean, 15 to 18 restaurants there.
And
So
so how
Faye,
have
yeah,
those
go ahead.
how have those restaurants really adapted to the open and close mandates now, and just trying to survive
Yeah.
in this new environment that we're in?
I mean, you're exactly right. What we just had our annual meeting, and the theme was resilience, recover, and recreate.
Mhm.
And I will
Mhm.
tell you, a lot of restaurants, and this is around the entire country, whether they've temporarily, some will permanently close. There's just no getting around that. There's some that are just owned by a family, and they
Right.
may or may not survive. And I know the Restaurant Association is definitely trying to, help them. But I will tell you, I am proud of some of the things that some of our restaurants have done to recreate. First of all,
Like what?
the what I'm calling, delivery on steroids, because in Texas you can get your food delivered to you, but you can also get your favorite margarita delivered to you now.
Nice.
And so,
The
that has been a,
essentials. The
yeah, I mean,
essentials.
but that was a huge shift. So think about that. A lot of
Mhm.
these restaurants
Mhm.
that, yeah, they work
Mhm.
and they partnered, whether it was with Uber Eats or Lyft or different
Mhm.
types of delivery services. So that helped out that business. They now have a very robust delivery. There were some restaurants that saw during the frenzy that you couldn't get some of your staples at the grocery store. They had their vendors, so they turned their entire restaurant into a market for a while. And
Yes.
so people could get their eggs, their milk, different things. So I thought that was extremely
Mhm.
creative. We saw catering companies, True Flavors, I mean, is a great example. They did two things. They said, people, just because I'm working from home, I'm not changing my style. I'm not a cook. I cook for my kids to survive. I don't cook because I enjoy it. I enjoy consuming food, but I will tell you, they created what was known as a heat and eat. So you could put your order in and have every day of home cooked meals that all you had to do was heat up, and your entire family was fed. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you started seeing margarita trucks going all throughout the city, or food trucks.
Mhm.
And I know that was always popular, but it was just on a totally different scale. That your favorite restaurants would come into your neighborhood, and you could have a food truck, or brunch. So I mean, really and truly, I have been amazed at how some of these companies have recreated. I mean, many of the events companies, well, we can't have an event in person right now. Let's do an event virtually. And so creating these virtual, robust experiences. And in fact, you can go to our website and experience many of our museums, many of our,
Perfect.
outdoor, all virtually right now. So, I mean, I think that the industry has shown certainly innovation and creativity.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. In academia, we think a lot about engagement, innovation, and impact. And the illustrations that you have just given us truly are innovative ways to continue to engage with the customers in such a way that maybe you aren't generating the revenue or the profitability that you did in 2019 or
Yeah.
in yesteryear, but but you are doing something. And so that impact is there. And maybe the impact means let us create brand awareness. If I
That's right.
bring my product to you, now I'm top of mind. So when
That's right.
things turn, and they will turn, I will be the favored son. I will be the one that you come back to. It's like going to Cheers. Everybody knows your name. So,
Oh,
you know, even though we brought it to you in a food truck, or I turned my place into a commissary, you still knew my name and I knew yours. So, welcome home.
That's right. Well, and it goes back to, I know we were talking about US Travel Association earlier.
yes.
They've done an incredible job of really banding the entire industry together, whether you're airlines, cities, and they have a Let's Go There campaign that we adopted that ultimately said just what you said, is that you love to dream. Why not, if you're not, if it's not right for you or your family to travel right now, go ahead and start planning it. Dream about your favorite destinations. And we tailored that to San Antonio, but it's about let's go there. Let's go there now if you feel comfortable, or go there when the time is right for you. And let me tell you, there have been airline companies that have bought into to this branding or this campaign,
Mhm.
uh, cruise lines. I mean, every aspect of our industry has adopted this message because I think it is so true. It's just, let's go there. Very simply, you've got those great destinations. I'd like to think it's San Antonio for many people, that, when the time is right and when you feel comfortable, we're going to be here for you.
I love it. I love
Mhm.
that perpetual optimism you have. And it's catching. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, everything we've been talking about. And I do want to reiterate paycheck protection, EIDL, all of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago. Encourage our representatives and our senators to pass this legislation that hopefully will occur this year before the end of the year, because it has helped these small restaurants,
Yes.
hotels, all the people that have been laid off, the unemployment. So we can't overlook that. But I love the dream of, thinking about where I'm going to go next, because it seems like every week, I don't know if you all do this, I do fantasize where I'm going to go next week. And I'm like, well, I really can't do that. I can't get on that plane. I can't do this. And so I have to call up Cassandra Matej and see if she'll be on a Zoom podcast so I can, and see if Faye Hall will co-host it with me so we can
Anytime.
hear firsthand about incredible San Antonio
Well,
and what you've done there. And thank you, because I'm already fantasizing going back.
so just two things,
Mhm.
and two, I don't know if I'm calling them corrections. So, first, the thing, I will say this, it wasn't what I've done. I have an incredible team, and our
Absolutely.
industry here in San Antonio is absolutely incredible. And they have made this destination so successful. So, I have to give it up. My team, I can't tell you how creative. We have had so many customer engagement activities since day one of the pandemic. We have done virtual educational sessions. We have
Nice.
done virtual cookie decorating. We have done, virtual margarita making. We've done virtual cooking classes. We have stayed really engaged with our key customers. And I think, and I have to give that up for our
Mhm.
sales and experience team for that. They have just done amazing. Our marketing team creating the virtual San Antonio experience and being, ahead of that. We even have Zoom backgrounds that you can download from our website to be on your Zoom calls. But I also will tell you this,
Great.
one thing we haven't talked about yet is the whole dialogue around safety, because
Mm-hmm.
I have traveled a few times now, and I will tell you, as long as you have shared responsibility in it, because the city can do what they need to do, the venues can do what they need to do, but you as a traveler have shared responsibility in that. And so as long as you do, and lately when I have traveled, I have felt safer than ever on a plane.
Great.
I've felt safe in many of the hotels that I've stayed in since March. But you have to remember it's a shared responsibility, and you have part of that responsibility.
Great point. And I'm so glad you gave a shout out to your team, because you and they are doing amazing work by being so creative and innovative. I can't wait to go to your website, which is visitsanantonio.com or .org.
That is it.
Okay.
That's it.
Visitsanantonio.com. Faye, did you have another question? We were worried we'd get through the full hour here, and I want to keep going.
Well, yep, and we're at the end of the hour, but you know what my takeaways are, Cassandra, out of everything that's been said, because we've talked about so much. We've talked about our furloughed employees. We've talked about San Antonio being a wonderful destination. We've talked about how we can market it and we can manage the brand experience for our travelers. And in each of those conversations, perpetual optimism and be intentional.
Yes.
And I just believe that if we walk through each of these places intentionally, deliberately, and we walk through each of these places knowing that we are goal oriented, we have a place to go and we aren't wandering, we can do that with perpetual optimism. There will be some potholes in the road, but we still know where we're going.
And if we're kayaking, there's no potholes.
See there? That's right. That's right.
So we have to envision that we're kayaking on the San Antonio River, and one day all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. Wow.
It's been fun. Thank you, Cassandra.
It has been fun. And
thank you, Carrie.
Oh, Faye, thank you so much. And Cassandra, what a great, wonderful guest you are. We have just enjoyed getting to know you better, and look forward to being in your city soon, and seeing everybody in the airports again, and on the Riverwalk for sure. So,
absolutely. Well, we'll be here when you're ready. For sure.
Thank you for everybody joining Cinderella CEO on Air. And ultimately, Cinderella is the ultimate comeback story. So let's do this. Let's look at each other and say, hey, we'll see you in 2021.
That's right.
In person, but let's stay in touch. The peer network, the mentoring, all the things that we can do to help each other during this time. And don't be a stranger. Go to cinderellaceo.com. We want to see you there. Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Thank you.